I haven't really thought this one through. I've gotten some feedback just about making kind of an introduction video so that anyone kind of coming to this channel knows what I'm about, a little bit about who I am, and why music's so important to me. So I guess we'll kind of start way, way back. I am the youngest of seven. I was born in 1986. I'm almost 40. My father was a drummer, loved rock and roll. This is actually his band right here. I keep next to my desk. Let's see, I think that was him right there. They were called The Bitter End. Um, and that's such a cool name. He was a drummer. They did a lot of covers, covered a lot of Beatles and Jimi Hendrix, The Who, some Led Zeppelin, things like that. But music was a big part of his life, and that definitely distilled down into all of his children. I have five sisters and a brother, and we all love music. And the interesting thing is, even though a lot of we had a Venn diagram of our music tastes, we're all over the place, but we have a lot of overlap. But my mom was very different. My mom was like Ella Fitzgerald and Nat King Cole, and she loved the classic voices. Little backstory: my mom was an opera singer. She grew up singing that style of music. Specifically, she sang in like the Arizona Opera Company, the Salt Lake Opera Company, I think the Billings, Montana Opera Company. So she sang classically like that for a long time. And then she kind of gave that up to be a mom, which I'm grateful for. Thanks, Mom. Anyway, that was those two. So we grew up listening to that kind of music. You know, we'd go on road trips. We'd all pile into the family Suburban, and we'd be driving up to my aunt and uncle's place in Drummond, Montana, and we'd be listening to Simon and Garfunkel, CCR. That was a big one. James Taylor was a real big influence on all of us. But the biggest was the Beatles. That was my dad's favorite band of all time. I think he was 11 or 12 when they first played on the Ed Sullivan Show, and he was watching that, and it changed his life. He spoke about that moment very fondly. So, being the youngest of seven, born in the 80s, raised formatively in the 90s, I had some interesting music tastes. I was the only kid. I was the only kid of all of my friends that could sit down and sing all the words to Beatles songs, and I was the only kid that knew anything about the Doors and Van Morrison and all the classics, right? But I also grew up singing. My mom was a vocal coach, and she taught all of us how to sing. To say that we were classically trained still feels a bit pretentious, but she was a vocal coach. She actually was the vocal coach for the late 90s breakout country group hit Shadazy. She was their vocal coach when they were teenage girls. So she knew what she was doing. She taught us all how to sing. I did musical theater growing up. But the best part about growing up in the household that I did was I always listened to my dad, listen to his music. And anytime he was working in his office, he had his tunes going, which was awesome. But sometimes on Saturdays, we'd wake up to my mom singing church hymns while she made breakfast. And that was what we woke up to. Very fond memories. But my oldest sister, Angie, she was really big into like George Michael. And so I grew up listening to that. And my brother, I remember listening to the Cars when he would drive. He really liked the Cars. My sister Natalie was a huge fan of U2. You know, and I specifically remember she had a VHS of VHS's, what we used to watch movies on. And she had a VHS of, I believe it was the Rattle and Hum tour of U2. But I remember listening to Joshua Tree, Achtung Baby, those records with my sister Natalie. She was also a drummer. Her band, back in the day, it was the Moxie Tonic Medicine Show. They had a number one requested song on our local radio station here, X96, for like a week and a half. It was called Dr. To Whitaker's DMT, something like, I don't know. It was cool. That was back in the day of like the swing pop music, Big Bad Voodoo Daddies and everything like that. But yeah, she took after my dad in that. She played the drums. My sister Ginger, I actually shared a room with Ginger for a period just before she ended up getting married. So I was young and she was older, but we were a big family. We had to share space. She was really big into Michael Jackson, and also her love of the Beatles was very strong. And so I still remember just laying in bed and she would have Michael Jackson playing, and those are great memories that I have. My sister Laurel, big time. She got really big into the 90s music, which was awesome for me because that was when I started to kind of gain my own music tastes. But I remember like listening to Dave Matthews Band with her and Cranberries, music like that. And then Lindsay, she's the one I'm closest in age to. She was the one that kind of took more after my mom, and she liked a lot of the 50s stuff. When we were growing up, that was the oldies. Now the oldies is the stuff from when I was a kid, which is kind of freaks me out a little bit. But I just remember she always had another local radio station here playing oldies 94.1, and that was just great memories. And that's kind of the music that shaped me at a very young age. But then when I was a teenager, maybe 16 or 17, had a neighbor, a guy that I went to church with, and he was kind of a leader in our church, specifically for the youth. Really great guy. His name was Aaron. He would hear us talking about music, and at this time, my favorite band still is to this day, Jimmy Eat World. That was all I was listening to, and that wasn't really his jam. And he said, "You know what? Give this a listen." And he gave me, or he let me borrow the Brothers in Arms album by Dire Straits. And that record just kind of blew my mind wide open. I had never heard guitar like that, where it was very clear that this was the best guitarist that I had ever really chose to listen to. Um, but he was not making that the star of the show. The lyrics were great. Just everything came together with that album, and I was obsessed with it. I listened to it for like 3 weeks straight before I gave it back to him. But that blues guitar really sent me down a different path, where I started to get really into the Rolling Stones and Buddy Guy, and just Eric Clapton, BB King, all these kinds of blues guitarists. And I just wanted to know everything that I could about these guys. And ended up going to a really cool concert a handful of years ago before my dad passed away. He and I went to a Jimi Hendrix tribute concert that was actually put on by the Hendrix family. And it was like Zakk Wylde, Buddy Guy, just these world-class guitarists blowing my mind. But I love everything. And now I get to make awesome new memories today because I have my own kids. And specifically, I have two daughters and a son, and my oldest is going to be 15 soon. And she has her own music tastes, but she takes a lot after me. But I love sharing music with them and seeing the music that kind of grabs hold of them. My middle child, her favorite is Paramore. I love Paramore. I always have. But she just has latched onto that. She's 11, and I love seeing the music grab hold of these kids' hearts and mean something to them. And that's kind of why I'm doing what I'm doing. Is I get to share music with them and they share music with me, and it's such a fun experience to find new music, to research new music, understand the story and the history of what's going on. And I want to share that with people. I want people to experience music and for music to mean what it means to me. I have so many memories wrapped up into all of these different albums, and road trips with my friends, road trips with my family. I just want to share that with people, and I hope you'll join me on that journey. So we'll have more reviews coming. I'll actually link a couple playlists that I've made. If you use Apple Music, sorry if you're uh, one of those other streaming services users. I can't hate unless you're using Amazon Music. That's the worst. But I'll link some playlists that I've made. I made a really cool playlist when my dad passed away a couple years ago. Just all the music that I could think of that he and I had some type of connection with, that we listened to on a road trip or just talked about, or that he had shared with me, or anything like that. That's a playlist that I listen to frequently, and it makes me feel close to my dad again. And I'll share that there, and hopefully we can have some fun conversations. Also, like, subscribe, and share some ideas. Share some albums. I like doing whole albums, not just a singular musician, or like their entire catalog of music. I like focusing on one album at a time. That's a much more consumable thing for me, and I like to kind of freeze time as I listen to that music, what was going on in this artist's life at that time, and maybe see how that connects, uh, the through line between all the different songs on the record. But anyway, share some ideas with me. Share some artists and some albums that mean something to you. I'd love to give it a listen. I'm open to listening to literally anything. I am no respecter. I might have opinions, but I'm open to listen to anything. So give it a like, subscribe, and share some ideas with me. Thanks.